Good morning, everyone. Quite an introduction. I do want to say I feel a little out of place in amongst this panel. As you know, the previous speakers have talked about the fact that they're innovative startups and that they've come to it fresh with the ability to really experiment and innovate because there's no past history. Of course, being part of the American Physical Society, I am drenched in tradition. As a society, we've been in existence for well over a century. We've been handling the journals since 1913, and we do a lot of outreach. And the one thing you have to know about physicists, of course, is that physicists believe they can do anything. And so, as a physicist, I have had the unique opportunity, I think, of launching actually the last two new journals that the Society has put out. And it has been an enlightening experience. I just wanted to add here that you'll see that my talk will be a little more mundane, because as I was developing it, I was trying to determine what was truly innovative about PRX that didn't spread out across all the journals of the APS. And so I might be talking about more general aspects, but I hope what you get out of it is some of the struggles that we had as a society in trying to develop new ideas to bring out new journals and reach out to new communities. So again, just another little historical perspective of what I've had to deal with over the past few years. The journals have grown substantially since they were introduced in 1893. Last year, we published just over 19,000 articles, nearly 160,000 pages of physics. As part of this entity, publishing entity, reporting to me, I have over 100 editors, 50 of them full-time professional editors, 50 part-time. We have our own IT staff that has developed a lot of legacy database. We have manuscript information back into the 70s, referee database with 60,000 names. You know, a lot of the inherent technological basis that I'm sure my colleagues had to develop almost from scratch. So there's some advantages there. The disadvantages, of course, is that anything new that's brought in has to be brought in into the current structure, and that you have to be aware of how things interact, and it doesn't allow quite as much flexibility. However, that said, in May of 2010, we made a decision that we needed to move forward, and so PRX was introduced, mainly to respond to the fact that the physics community had not only grown, but had expanded in areas that we could no longer sit in the traditional concepts from the 1890s as to what is physics. Just quickly, if you note on the previous slide, in 1938, you see a little bar that strikes away from the main curve. In 1938, there was a decision made that applied physics was just a little too dirty for those in the ivory tower. And so we turned over the journal to AIP, and which has become a centerpiece of AIP publishing and one of their better-known journals, Journal of Applied Physics and Applied Physics Letters. And so this is the type of tradition inherent in the system that makes it very difficult to expand and grow in. And I'm sure some of you have run into the same problems. So the idea here is to take this opportunity to introduce a journal that not only covers the broad expanse of physics literature, but also to develop and spread into the areas of which physicists are moving into. So this includes medical physics, this includes biological physics, this includes even things like game theory and social dynamics. The idea is to have an expansive journal that covers all of these topics at a level equivalent to our other journals. So the real struggle I had was convincing our council and our officers of why publish this journal? Why should we move forward? Obviously, there's a lot of advantage. As I said, it expands our current coverage. It helps develop and expand the family of journals. It creates a new venue where the traditional scientific areas, or I should say outside of the traditional scientific areas, that have fallen through the cracks of our current coverage. And these are the ones where the exciting sciences are occurring. It was also an attempt to help diffuse the knowledge of physics by responding to the needs of the global community. And of course, we have an imperative, a need to expand our revenue streams. Just to bring it to light, the journals, the APS journals, have revenues in around $35 million. And the revenues for the whole society is on the order of $46 million. So as you can see, the journals are the very basis of the society and how it operates. And so it's very key that as things change, as the dynamics change, we must be on top of it, we must move forward. And of course, anything new gives us an experience that we can build on. As was noted before, about megajournals. In around 2010, PLOS One was just becoming probably the largest journal in the STM environment. It had just about caught up to one of our own journals, Physical Review B, who at the time was publishing nearly 6,400 papers annually. But when you look at what we received nearly 35,000 manuscripts in 2010. So we were rejecting nearly 18,000 papers. And when you look at it in this mega journal mentality, that was, rough estimate of $1,500 each. You're talking about a $27 million revenue stream. However, we decided that that wasn't the way to go. That the environment in the society itself wasn't looking for a new mega journal to just bring information, flood you with information. But it was important to have a highly selective journal, a journal of excellence, one that would help get through the whole mass of information that's coming at us in this new electronic format. We also had a brand, as I said, that had been in existence for over a century. And we didn't want to dilute the brand with just anything. And so we believed that a high technical standards, high impact was a fundamental part of any scholarly endeavor in any new journal that we would introduce. So we wanted to step back and look at what were our options. If we were going to introduce new journals or a new journal into the environment, what would be our business model? So of course, subscription models, we've had those for decades, for years. It's well established. We already have a broad customer base. You know, all we have to do is expand our package of journals. No problem, right? And it was priced for the consumer. So the people who are absorbing the information are sort of the ones that are paying the price. However, the problem was it wasn't open access. It wasn't reaching those people who did not have the subscriptions to their universities. You don't get the accidental findings and the interactions with people in that way. There was also an issue of reduced library budgets and the backlash from librarians about the ever-increasing price structure and the expansion of products in this very nature. Also, it didn't really diversify our revenue streams. It would still lock us into a subscription model. Now, in 1998, we started a new journal for a very specific community. This was accelerators and beams. And in that sense, we used a sponsorship model. So in this case, all the high-energy accelerator labs donated money to start and pay for the journal so that it would become completely open access, no charges to the author. It was felt that these labs had deeper pockets, and we could then price the product for both the creator and the consumer. It did diversify the revenue streams. However, it is always the case, especially in a very broad area, how do you identify the sources for a sponsorship? In some sense, in the life sciences, with a lot of private entities that have come together, there was a way of finding sponsors, at least for the startup costs. However, in physics, most of the money comes from governmental entities, and we all know how difficult it is to get any type of consistent money flow from the government, especially the US government. And we also found that with even this small community, we failed to fully pay for our costs. So the APS was absorbing a lot of the overhead. In this case, it was you're gathering money from a few to pay for the many, in the sense of the many consumers. It didn't seem like it scaled, and as the journal would grow, you would just have to collect more and more sponsors, more and more money from those individual sponsors. So we turned to the article processing charge. As I said, I had started another journal, a very specific one in physics education research in 2005. And we had to try to find a way of bringing that information to that very narrow, very specific community. And one of the things with article processing charges that we found favorable was the issue of transparent costs, that we were able to come out and explain directly through the pricing structure exactly what our costs were, what our overheads were. And it was, I think, highly appreciated in the community that we were able to do so. In this case, it is priced for the creator. So those researchers that produce the information pay for it to be distributed openly and to all the consumers. In this sense, it becomes part of a feedback loop for that creator, which, essentially they're paying for the distribution, they're trying to get their information out. And it did help diversify our revenue streams. Of course, there were some negatives. Again, one pays for the many. You're asking a researcher who's already done all that work to produce that paper to then also pay for the favor of having it distributed. The funds definitely had to come from research budgets, which interfered with the ability to send graduate students to meetings, etc. That there were some financial hardships, and that the burden was on the individual. Well, for Physical Review X, it was difficult and was a struggle, but we decided to go with the article processing charges. We made a determination that we would stick to whatever model we had for the first 3 years, allow the journal to grow, allow the journal to find its own standards before we would move forward. We made some assumptions there about how we expected the editorial process to be conducted, what would be the acceptance rates, what would be the overhead costs. We also anticipated having some overhead for some of the innovative ideas that we try to bring in. When I say innovative, I mean innovative for us. Popular summaries, trying to bring the paper to a broader audience. Using a single descriptive figure as a thumbnail associated with every article to try to bring the actual physics into focus before anyone has to delve too deeply into it. Now, one of the advantages to Physical Review X over our other journals was, of course, it was cross-disciplinary. It wasn't narrowly focused on topic areas. We would maintain high academic editorial standards through both remote external editors as well as our in-house editors. And with flexible article lengths, you no longer had the issues that you find with letter-style articles where you had to be precisely 4 pages. I mean, that just seems a remnant of a print world which we are quickly moving out of. And, again, the idea of the free global access. So where are we today? Well, in 2012, which was our first year of submissions, we received over 300 papers, of which we published 70. So we had an acceptance rate of under 25%. Now, for many of you out there, you probably have journals at much tighter, much higher standards. But for us at the APS, this exceeded even our premier journal, Physical Review Letters. It was a highly focused journal looking for high standards. We also note that the interaction between the editorial staff and the authors and referees was on an individual basis. You can imagine that when you're receiving thousands and thousands of papers every year, I mean, even with 100 editors on staff, the average load for a full-time professional editor is on the order of 900 manuscripts annually. That individual interaction was lacking in a lot of what we've done in our traditional journals. And so what we've done here is try to step away from it. And as you can see, we're hoping to get an impact factor soon. We all live and die by it, unfortunately. And it looks like we're doing pretty well. We anticipate something on the order of 7, which is very similar to PRL, very similar to Nature Communications' first impact factor of 8. So we're very happy and proud of that. We're also very happy and proud that this interaction, individual interaction, is well received by the community. You know, the authors, again, even those that have been rejected, react positively to the fact that the decisions were quick, the decisions were informative, and it always, they felt, led down the line to have a better understanding of the journal, a better understanding of their own work, and then will improve it no matter where it eventually gets published. Also, the reviewers were also quite pleased with the interaction. They enjoyed the feedback that they received, creating a greater understanding of, are they doing their job? How are they examining this piece of work within the broader literature? And so it is not something that we want to step away from as we're learning these new things, but it does result in cost. So where do we stand? The APS remains committed to maintaining the current pricing model despite running at a loss. Our editorial efforts, as we said, with this personal hands-on interaction has certainly exceeded our expectations. For the number of articles we're receiving, we expected to use something closer to a half FTE, and as you can see, we're using 1.5 FTEs. We have had positive community experience. They've come back to us. We have authors that have returned, sending us good work, some of their best work. We're very happy building this up slowly. Again, I think this goes back to having the commitment to stick with something because it is a slow growth cycle. And some of the things that we've done that we had anticipated the authors taking over, things like writing popular summaries, interacting with the media. Well, unfortunately, we found out that professional scientists aren't necessarily good at that. So unfortunately, we're left doing it ourselves. And with all of these additional incremental steps that we're hoping enhance and make the article better and make it more available to a broader audience, we probably won't be able to maintain the financial structure that we set out to do, but we will maintain the experiment. So, though I end, I just have a few sort of final and additional thoughts. From a traditional society publisher, starting a new journal in this environment is a good opportunity to really push the boundaries of expectations. As these two have shown in their respective journals, when you start fresh and you have a clean slate, you have great opportunities. But you shouldn't think that as a traditional publisher you don't have similar opportunities. You really do have to break loose, try new things. Unfortunately, this seminar came about a month too early. We are in the process of revamping our entire website, how we distribute information to our readers. PRX will be most likely an initial test bed for this to see how it works. A lot of the technological advances mentioned by my fellow panelists are the direction communication is going into. And in interacting with your users, it's important to somehow coalesce those technological advances with the needs of the consumer, the needs of those that are using the information. You know how they're coming to your content. They're coming from Google. They're coming directly to your abstract page or directly to your article. So how do you enhance that? How do you bring that to their attention? What are their needs? What are their interests? As a society publisher, we have some advantages. As I said, I can't show you any examples, but what we're tying in is our society advances with the papers. In the sense that if you're coming to this paper, you might be interested in the fact that we have a meeting coming up in those topical areas and lead you to abstracts of those papers that are connected. We want to lead you to other papers that are within our other journals, not directly PRX and the like. It has to be a totally engaging, cohesive environment. And hopefully within a month or so, you'll see that on our website. So I apologize that I cannot give you a little preview of that. So thank you all very much.